So let's talk about the next movie, which is also another animated film. And this one is from a director I've grown to really love the past 5 years. This is a director who I don't love his big blockbuster stuff. Wasn't a big fan of Pacific Rim. I think the Hellboy movies are just okay. I've always kind of felt that this director was overrated to some degree. And then Shape of Water, I really understood it, and I went back. I respect Crimson Peak more. Pan's Labyrinth is pretty brilliant. I really love Nightmare Alley from this year. So ultimately, I was like, okay, you know what? Guillermo del Toro. If anyone was to give me a Pinocchio film, let's see what you got. We had the terrible one from Robert Zemeckis earlier this year. This seems like a character that's just been done over and over again. But I'm like, okay, Guillermo, if there's anyone that I'm going to give the chance, it is you, sir. Please make me a great movie. And this film is directed by Guillermo del Toro and Mark Gustafson in his directorial debut. And they delivered. This movie's wonderful. Pinocchio, you're not going to hear a lot of criticisms from me. This film stars Ewan McGregor as Sebastian J. Cricket, Gregory Mann as Pinocchio, David Bradley as Geppetto, and features vocal performances from Christoph Waltz in the villain role. Waltz is back, and he's killing it as the villain in this movie. Tilda Swinton, Ron Perlman, Finn Wolfhard, and Cate Blanchett. It is a story of Pinocchio. It reimagines Pinocchio based on the 2002 edition by Chris Grimley, which imagines Pinocchio in Italy during World War II. So Mussolini is in this film. The Gestapo is in this film. The film features Geppetto as a father whose son has recently died, and one night he crafts Pinocchio, who is then brought to life by some spirits, and ultimately the film does follow many of the same beats audiences will be familiar with from the Disney version, including a very scary whale scene and a carnival sequence, Pinocchio trying to go to school and then being kidnapped to the carnival, and God, this movie's awesome. I was really nervous about this movie because, again, we just had that Zemeckis one, which was just bad. And, okay, it looks like it's a lot of the same beats as Pinocchio. What is Guillermo del Toro going to do? And it's weird because it actually does a lot of the same things that Zemeckis tries doing. Zemeckis really did try to make Tom Hanks Geppetto as the father figure of the film and explaining that Pinocchio is kind of a way for him to grieve. It's just that film talks about it for 2 minutes and then it's never talked about in the rest of this film. Geppetto is a very sad character in this film. And the voice actor David Bradley just does a great job of just showing the sorrow of this character and how lost this character is, and him learning to accept Pinocchio and form this kinship with him. It's a very beautiful film in that regard. And the vocal cast is all just incredible. I already said Christoph Waltz is the villain. My God, he gets to choose the scenery in such awesome ways. So does Ron Perlman as the Gestapo. They're both just wonderful in this film, and I really like them in this film. And God, it's again one of those things. The art direction of this film is just superb. The film feels fully realized, kind of like I said with Wendell and Wild. Everything feels effortful, but in a great way. It all feels very cohesive. It all works together. It's Guillermo del Toro just kind of working in his element. I mean, this is a fairy tale with very dark, natural undertones that haven't always been incorporated within the story. This has a story about family. It's ultimately the story of a father-son relationship, which I think is even more impactful, and I can definitely see why Del Toro was drawn to this after his own father passed away in 2018. I definitely understand why he would want to tell this. And it really is. It's a Guillermo del Toro fairy tale. And it's awesome. I really love this movie. It's just beautiful to look at. It's very emotionally heartfelt. There are some scenes that are really emotionally devastating. It has a scene that I would put similar to that of Up in the first 20 minutes of the scene. You're left heartbroken for this character of Geppetto. And then when Pinocchio comes in, Pinocchio's a lot more aggressively annoying and combative in this film. He's almost he feels as they say in the film, a naughty boy. I did not love saying that. But ultimately, it all works, and it just allows this film to feel different from the tonal Disney shift. And in doing that, it just allows it to feel of its own. Now, I will say, the issue with this film is the fact that the Disney versions have existed and still exist, and we just had one each year. So, the scenes with, the whale or the carnival, it's I just feel I just saw that because he kind of just did. And it's an unfair critique to put on this film. In fact, I wouldn't even call it a critique. It's just poor timing. And it's just an fortunate circumstance, but it is in my mind where I'm like watching the carnival scene done much better in this film than it was in Zemeckis. And I'm ultimately like, oh, okay, I just saw this in Zemeckis' version, and true, this is much better, but it feels so familiar. So that's a little bit of a struggle that I think most audiences will probably have with this film. But ultimately, I really love this film. It's a really beautiful film to look at. It might be like a smidge too long, but I wouldn't even go that. You know, if you've heard my reviews, you know I get really bothered when a movie's over 100 minutes. But ultimately, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, huge recommendation. Check this one out. I'm going to say 3.5 out of 4 stars for Pinocchio, for Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. The review may jump up, honestly, in the future, because this is a film that I'll be rewatching, and I think its impact is going to be undeniable. I think the best animated feature just got locked up. I think Pinocchio is going to win it all, and it might even make it into the best picture category. I really like this film. It's one of Guillermo del Toro's best, and it's Guillermo del Toro working in a setting that he knows to do masterfully. And check it out. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio will be coming out to Netflix, and if you can see it in theaters, see it in theaters. It's very well worth the experience.